Okay, so we're here for another episode of What They Said. I actually did a little bit of tracing what we've done so far. I think this is actually like the seventh or eighth time we've actually convened. Usually we talk about a couple of movies. The first couple times we talked about the movies, some movies of 2020. But rather than just pair a couple of films up this time, we've decided to venture into the filmography of Stanley Kubrick. And I thought that was kind of an interesting choice for us to tackle because I have a feeling we're all in fairly different places in terms of being fans of Kubrick. Although my own place with Kubrick has actually changed a little since we came up with the idea. Maybe not quite. I think I was going to be the one considered like the super zealous Kubrick fan, and I think watching some of the movies, I think I just, maybe did spot more of the flaws or thought a little more deeply about some of the flaws in some of his movies. But overall, I am a pretty big fan of his work. I know Steven kind of runs on the opposite end of the pole, and I'm sort of thinking Phil is maybe in between, but maybe a little
No,
closer to me, a
I'm a
little
big
closer to
fan.
me, probably. You are a
I'm a
big
big
fan.
fan.
Okay. Okay.
When we did the ILX directors poll, it surprised me a bit. I think I listed him as my second or third favorite director.
Oh,
I just
wow.
got the
Okay.
evidence of just the sort of counting how many films I like. It wasn't any great philosophical thing or anything. I mean, I think I ranked him ahead of, I hate to say it, I'd sound sacrilegious. I think I ranked him ahead of Scorsese because Scorsese has now spent how many years making many bad films?
Well, that was one point I wanted to make about Kubrick is that whether you want to talk about it in terms of auteur or whatever, I mean, in some ways, he's the ultimate auteur in that obviously there's the stylistic consistency throughout all his work. But really, I do think if you are a Kubrick fan, there's very little in his work that you're going to hate. I mean, there's going to be lesser films and stuff that's at the top. There's maybe there's one for sure that I didn't like at all, but I've only seen it once, and that was 25 years ago probably. But otherwise, when I see his work, it's like it's pretty damn consistent. But when you get into like Scorsese and Altman and Coppola, to speak of like fairly contemporary filmmakers, they're all over the place. So it was to his advantage that he only ended up really making, what was it, like 17 features or something? Or actually, not
I
even that
guess
many,
it depends.
right?
I think he at one point said his filmography starts with The Killing.
Right.
He may have
Right.
said that. So if you count up, I mean, I'll do the tally, but go ahead.
Well, why don't we start with that actually? So I think we're going to run through the films chronologically. We'll pause at some longer than others, I'm sure, talk about some of our favorites. And I think we were just going to start at the beginning by kind of treating as a lump sum some of the movies that preceded The Killing. So what you have the list in front of you, Phil.
Yeah.
Why don't you just run through the titles, and if anyone has anything to say about any of them, feel free to.
So first of all, including The Killing, he made 11 films. If you start with The Killing.
Okay.
Now, before The Killing, and like Steven can talk about this, he starts as a photographer with Life magazine. He makes a couple of documentary shorts in 1951, Flying Padre. I think that was about Fernando Tatis Jr. Or Tatis Jr. and Day of the Fight. Then he makes his first narrative feature film, very short though, it might even be under an hour, just barely over an hour, Fear and Desire. I have seen that. Have you seen it, Stephen?
If I have, I can't remember.
Okay, well, it's same here. I have seen it. I remember nothing other than, yes, you could see it was the work of a photographer. It had some nice shots, still shots that could be extracted as photographs, but the acting was very amateurish, and I don't remember anything else about it.
Apparently, it's a kind of film. It's film noirish, apparently. Or?
I think it is, and okay. Killer's Kiss is too.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking of. Sorry. I thought you were on Killer's Kiss. Sorry. Okay.
I think Fear and Desire. Well, Fear and Desire had a boxing element too, I think, unless that was Killer's Kiss. But I think it was Fear and Desire.
Okay.
In between, he makes The Seafarers. Don't know anything about it. 1953. Then 55, he makes Killer's Kiss, and I retain one memory of that, which is Mannequins for some reason. Have you seen that? So I'm sure you've seen it, right, Stephen? Killer's Kiss?
Again, I can't remember. I do think I've seen that one.
Okay.
I don't even remember.
There's a scene in a mannequin warehouse.
Phil, I
And-
just want to chime in with one quick correction.
Sure.
Not a big thing, but he was photographer for Look magazine, not
Look
Life.
magazine, sorry.
Life.
yeah.
So anyway.
Yep, no, you're right, you're right. And then in 56, he makes The Killing, which is, I would say, after Double Indemnity, it's my favorite film noir. I put it ahead of even, they're great films, but oh man, what's the one where Lee Marvin throws the coffee in her face, blanking out. The Fritz Lang film, The Big Heat.
Oh, The Big Heat, yeah.
And The Big Sleep, they're all great films. And, you know, I could list a dozen others, at least more than that. Stephen, I'm sure, knows many more great noir films than I do. But I put The Killing right after Double Indemnity, and I watched it again two or 3 days ago. I think it's just great.
I can talk about a quote that I have from Marie Windsor, who was in The Killing. She said, "I didn't know I was doing film noir. I thought they were detective stories with low lighting."
She's great in it. She's great.
Yes, she is.
And she is in another key noir. The one that isn't she in the one that was remade into Narrow Margin with Gene Hackman? I can't, maybe it had the same title originally. Anyway, the most mismatched married couple in movie history has got to be Marie Windsor and Alicia Cook Jr., who is even more of a patsy than he is in the Bogart films. I mean, he's unbelievable. Like what I think he says early on, "Why did you ever marry me?" And what? Yeah, why? What was she thinking? what was the initial spark there between those two?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I can see Tarantino. It's a heist film. And I love the Asphalt Jungle too. I haven't seen the Jules Dassin famous.
Fifi?
Yeah, I haven't seen that. And there are others, but it's just getting this crew together. And like in Reservoir Dogs, at one point somebody says, "Well, what's your name?" And they don't have nicknames, but he says, "Well, we don't need to." Sterling Hayden's amazing. We don't know each other. You don't need to know my name. I don't need to know your name. So it's got that element. And of course, the biggest thing, like any heist film, everything goes wrong. Everything goes right for a while, and then it just falls apart. And the ending is just unbelievable. I've talked enough. Go ahead.
Yeah, and let me just say, I should chime in early on and say that I haven't seen a few Kubrick films, and that's one I have not seen. So I'm leaving the floor to you guys entirely
Okay.
on this one.
Go ahead,
I
Steve.
wanted to say a couple things. One is that I think Kubrick, ones I like, ones I don't care for, he's very careful and controlled for the most part, and it works great in The Killing, where they're setting up this heist, and it's very detailed and it's very understandable. And then, as Phil says, of course, it goes wrong because that's what happens in heist films. Yet we're prepared in a different sort of way, just because it's so, I don't want to say perfect, but it's so well done that you want everything to go right, not just because Sterling Hayden's good, but you want it to go right because the movie's going right, if that makes sense. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that becomes down the road a peeve of mine, but which is absolutely not true here, the acting across the board is wonderful in The Killing. And I find myself wondering how he went from that to seeming to not care very much about his acting in later films.
There's definitely some bad performances.
So that's why I want to emphasize it here, because when I think about what I see as his decline, that's one of the things right there. A movie like The Killing and the acting is just so good. And, whenever everybody in the movies does a good acting job, I figured the director had to have something to do with it because they're in charge of everything. So give him credit for that. Altogether, then, yeah, I think it's a great movie. I agree with Phil.
Offbeat characters too. I mean, Timothy Carey's character, the way he grimaces when he and the way he gets rid of the security guard is shocking. You know, and also the guy who, he must have been a professional wrestler, right? The chess guy. I think he was a professional wrestler.
Let me check here. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Because, you know, when he's fighting off those security guards, suddenly he just looked like he was a professional wrestler, not an actor. I could be wrong. And Alicia Cook Jr., you know, some of the other characters. Who is the character who clearly there's such a gay element to it? The older guy who wants to run off with Sterling Hayden. What's that guy's name? I mean, these aren't famous actors for the most part. The only well-known, Sterling Hayden, I would call semi-famous, certainly cult famous. Timothy Carey to a certain extent, and Alicia Cook Jr., but some of those guys, I don't know any of them, who they are.
Yeah.
Was Sterling Hayden, this must have been one of his early films, right?
I think he
It's
dates
after
back
Johnny
to the,
Guitar.
yeah, I think he did. He might reach into the 40s, I think.
Okay.
And Johnny Guitar for sure. He's
Oh,
already
Johnny
made
Guitar, yeah. Okay.
one highly regarded film.
Yeah.
It does set into motion the, and I don't think it's ever better, just the, whatever you want to call it, nihilism in Kubrick's films, cynicism, you know, however you want to frame it, but the ending, the last line of the film would probably be my choice for greatest last line of any film.
Wow.
Where, I don't know, should I say?
You have to quote it now. Come on.
Okay, so everything's gone wrong. He's watched however much money, $100,000. A dog gets that suitcase. It's a great image. It's blowing all over the place. And then his fiance wants him. They left the airport. They're standing, trying to hail a cab. He's just standing there in shock. And she's trying to get him away before they realize that it was his suitcase. And he's kind of standing there frozen. And then his wife points, look, they're coming for you now, to the two detectives and somebody that works at the airport. And he says, what's the difference? It's the way he says it. I put a terrible inflection on it there. It's very similar to the last line of Straight Time, Scott.
Okay. Yeah.
Where he says, there's one thing, I'll get caught or something. And it's
Yeah,
just such
yeah.
a downbeat
Yeah.
ending. And he's just being hauled back to jail.
Well,
When Stephen, sorry, I just want to say, when Stephen was talking about how well the story's told, it's very clear, and yet they're doing lots of time shifting, right? Where they go 3 hours before. It's not told, and there's another influence on Tarantino, it's not told in a linear fashion. They're skipping back and forth, but you're never really confused. I'm not.
So Paths of Glory, 1957, that caused a bit of a splash, I sort of gather from what I've read. Like, that was a pretty big movie, a big critical hit. I don't know if it was, I don't know how big it was at the box office, but I saw it for the first time ever about a week and a half ago or so. Really liked it, you know, could sort of see much of Kubrick in it. The only sort of thing that maybe sort of hampered my enthusiasm for a little bit is maybe just the reputation versus, you know, what I ended up seeing. I mean, part of the problem for me is that I really haven't seen that many war movies from that era. Like, you know, like when I think of a war movie, I've mostly seen Vietnam movies, really. Like, I really haven't watched that many World War II or this is World War I movie, obviously. So I don't have a huge frame of reference about that. I mean, my sense from what I've read about it is that, you know, it was a little more hard hitting or something than many of the war films coming out at the time. So that may or may not be true. I don't really have that context. And, you know, just because naturally it's a, you know, a 65-year-old film now, I'd be kind of surprised if it would hit me with the same impact, even if I'd seen it in the 70s or the 80s, you know, before I'd even known much about Kubrick. So I really liked the film, but I didn't feel the awe that many people who know the film, you know, naturally feel. So
you go ahead, Stephen.
It's my favorite of all his movies. I want to say it's perfect, but I don't really buy the final scene with the singer in the club. Whatever.
And you know who that is, right? You know who that is, right?
I forget.
His future wife, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
They weren't married.
That's when they
Yes.
met on that
Yes.
during that movie.
At the time, I don't think.
Anyway,
Christine Kubrick.
not just the camera work, tracking shots in the trenches, which
Yeah,
are mind-boggling, but once they start to attack, and you can just picture Kubrick out there with, didn't have Steadicam yet, but Kubrick out there with his camera, just going through the war with them, basically. Impressive stuff. Not impressive in a way where I say, well, that's pretty good camera work. It's appropriate for what we're seeing. It really puts us inside the horror in ways that doesn't happen very often. Saving Private Ryan is usually brought up, but when I really think that stuff's good. So that's the first part. Then, although I feel like it has a reputation as an anti-war film, but I'm not sure that's the key. The key is that the generals are dicks and they don't care about their men, and Kirk Douglas gets to be the honorable fellow. I'm not surprised. David Simon, who did The Wire and other things, said the novel of Passive Glory is a big influence on him in The Wire, and I assume he's pointing to the part where the people in charge screw everybody else. I haven't heard him say that, but I'm going to guess that's true.
Humphrey Cobb, is that right?
What was that?
The writer, Humphrey Cobb, that name popped into my head. I think.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know anything about it, but the name just popped in my head.
Then finally, the casting again. Adolphe Menjou, I think the legend is that Kubrick picked him on purpose because Adolphe Menjou was a neo-fascist, and so he stuck him in a part like that because he'd be good at it. Of course, Kirk Douglas is a role that's really tailor-made for him in terms of the do-goodism, etc. People like Timothy Carey. I'm blanking out here for a second, but I have it called up right here. Ralph Meeker, is Ralph Meeker in there too? These are actors. Some of them have given a lot of great performances, and others have not. They're just sort of there, but they all seem to rise to the occasion in this one. And so I put it all together. Like I say, the last scene, I can take it or leave it, but I think it's my favorite one of his movies.
I feel the same way about the last scene. It seems a little obvious or telegraphed or something.
yeah.
Tim Carey, I think he's sometimes thought of as a kind of proto hippie almost, or beatnik or something. He's got that sleepy-eyed look about him. And I meant to mention, though, you mentioned camera work, and those shots are incredible. The tracking shots, obviously they're, I guess this long before the Steadicam of The Shining, but they're every bit as impressive as those shots in The Shining. I want to mention the cinematographer on The Killing was Lucien Ballard, who did The Wild Bunch, right? Yeah, I like the way Stephen phrased that about it's not necessarily anti-war, it's anti-general and anti-bureaucracy. I mean, the two guys, Menjou, I don't know which one is more maddening. MacReady is just flat out evil, but then Menjou is the kind of guy, he's like one of those Trump enablers where he's maddening because he seems to, he's, he knows more, he's smarter. MacReady's just a dedicated, insane military guy, every bit as insane as Sterling Hayden and Dr. Strangelove. So in some ways, Adolphe Menjou is even more infuriating.
Yeah, he has more power. He has more power to do something. So
yeah, he's ranked above, right? He's a higher up. Yeah, there's that too. And the great confrontation when it was Kirk Douglas's birthday, I would always play for my students. I would play him telling, even though he says, I think he says "son of a bitch," and I probably shouldn't have, but that's just great. Where he does maybe over, he's a little too much Kirk Douglas-y. I don't know, with the jaw and everything. But it's a great scene, and the trial is so tense, and so it's if I'm recollecting correctly, it's like a Wes Anderson thing where everything is very symmetric. The way they set up the shots with the three of them, right? There's one guy's already dead, or he's passed out during the trial, correct?
Yeah. He got in a fight,
yeah.
Before with I think it was with or he attacked the priest or whatever. And I can't remember
That's
how he
right.
ended up getting hurt. I think one of the guys in stopping him had to beat him up or something, and he beat him up too hard or something like that. So
He was the young guy. And Ralph Meeker,
Yeah.
he's in Kiss Me Deadly, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very good. He's very good. I don't remember him in Kiss. Kiss Me Deadly is a great film. I don't remember him as vividly as I do, and he's just got a certain manner about him. Oh, and one of my favorite, I got to mention the scene with the fly. Of course, it's just amazing. The punchline to that, right?
Oh yeah.
Somebody, I think is it Meeker or the other? I think it's Meeker gives this great philosophical speech about the meaning of the fly and its life and its death. And then I think Tim Curry, yeah,
Sweet
yeah,
transvestite.
yeah, Tim Curry. Then he sings "Sweet Transvestite." Tim Curry just kills it. He just said, "Now you got it on. You're one up on him now," or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just such a precision to the whole film, and it doesn't, and obviously it doesn't unfold in real time because you've got the battle and everything, but it feels at a certain point like it is unfolding in real time. Like it's got a kind of TV show quality about it, and you got this clock ticking down. It's those two back to back. Because as I started to watch Spartacus, I thought, well, how did Stanley Kubrick ever get this assignment? Because this is a big budget Hollywood film, right? But then I said, well, of course.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. He got it because he obviously, and Kirk Douglas is the reason I think he did Spartacus. I think Douglas insisted on Kubrick, and he got it because he made two great films already. And I think it was probably actors were already noticing him. I don't know if producers were necessarily saying this guy can make money for us, but I think he had probably already become a favorite director of actors who would either work with him or seen those other films. It must have been talked a lot about by other directors. So it did make sense that he got Spartacus.
Unless I'm mixing up the movies, I think Anthony Mann had started directing Spartacus for a short time, and then I don't know why that fell out. But Kubrick came in, at the behest of Kirk Douglas, I think.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
We have about 10 minutes on this recording left. Do you want to try and take on what? I've got the time written down here. It's like
you start.
197 minutes. Spartacus. It's even 10 minutes longer than Barry Lyndon, which is his runner-up in the long
That's a good comparison because I can remember Barry Lyndon seeing it and not liking it, and I really like Spartacus, and hey, it's clearly not the length.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, but my opinion about myself is that one reason I like Spartacus as much as I do is because Kubrick apparently doesn't like it. He sort of disowns it, wasn't a movie, all that stuff. And when I think about it with the acting, once again, being great, I think, well, before Kubrick got there, someone had written a novel and someone else had written a script, and the characters had started to develop and the actors were picked before Kubrick got involved. And then when he moves in, I can see why he would think I'm just for hire here. But I think the movie is better for that. He gets to apply the skills that he has as a filmmaker without doing the things that over the course of his later work bothered me. So I don't mind Spartacus at all. And I wonder if it's because I'm being contrary and just thinking, well, if he didn't like it, I did. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a feeling I get. Once again, I think there's so much great acting. It's the only movie he ever made where there's an actor won an Oscar.
Oh, Peter Ustinov, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Sellers is the only one who ever even got nominated, and I think that says something to you.
Is that true? I would have just assumed. Okay, I'm surprised that, leaving aside, this is leaping way ahead, but I'm surprised. Tom Cruise is sometimes good and sometimes not good at all in Eyes Wide Shut, but I thought he would have got a nomination just on reputation.
I could be wrong. When I wrote about Spartacus a few years back, that's what I thought was true. That's what I wrote. So I could have.
No, you might. I'm sure you're right. And
But for me, it's crucial in the way that such a highly regarded director who's made not as many movies as some, but he's made a lot of movies, a lot of highly regarded movies, a lot of great movies, and yet the acting doesn't seem to be the part of the movies for the most part that people talk about. And then the one movie where they have an actor who gets an Oscar, Peter Ustinov probably wrote half of his own lines, being Peter Ustinov. I don't know. I can't escape the idea that. And again, I want to emphasize that there's so much about Spartacus that's clearly Kubrick and it's clearly great. So I don't want to say Kubrick had nothing to do with the greatness of it. But I wonder if that's why I liked it as much as I did.
Ustinov is hilarious in it. He's just so Weasley, you know. I always thought one of the implicit messages of the film, not message, but one of the things you might be left with is guys like Ustinov, like the world could be falling apart and they're gonna come out okay. You know, because he'll flatter whoever he needs to flatter. He does seem to have a little bit of moral fiber, but he had that one great line in the beginning where somebody tells him, oh, somebody's about to arrive, somebody important, and he sort of brushes it off. Oh, I don't care, no big deal. He says, but what's Laurence Olivier's Crassus? Is that right, Stephen? Crassus?
Crassus, maybe that's.
It's just, no, it's Crassus. And then Ustinov said, okay. He says, go get our second best wine. He's, no, get the best wine, but make it small quantities.
Yeah, Gracchus is Charles Laughton, and Peter Ustinov is, I can't see because I don't have my reading glasses on, but Charles Gracchus, I can tell you that.
It's not important. Anyway, it's Laurence Olivier's character is on his way. So he's just spineless, mealy-mouthed, but very funny. And I'd say the other two great performances probably are Laurence Olivier. I'm sorry, world that watches this. I have a new puppy, and it's a major distraction. I really apologize. This is not working. I should never have let him sleep 4 hours because it's 90 degrees here. And I kept them busy, blah, blah, blah. This has nothing to do with Stanley Kubrick.
Dogs are a part of life. Don't worry about it.
I know. So Charles Laughton, he's really good. I was thinking about this role in comparison to him in Advice and Consent, where he's also a senator. They came so close together. And Laurence Olivier is really like sinister in it and in certain aspects. And he has a famous scene. Tony Curtis is just, he's campily great.
Yeah.
And that scene is something else. Have you seen Spartacus, Scott? You did see it, of course. What am I talking about? Oh,
no,
okay,
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't.
Okay, it was Past the Glory. You were just so distracted.
Yeah, Past the
Glory.
Yeah.
You were just talking about. There's a famous scene, Scott, that they restored in it that they could never have gotten away with in 1959. It came out, I think, or 60.
60.
Yeah. So that's pretty memorable, where he's basically defining bisexuality as people who like oysters and snails. And what else do I like about it? I think I think it's probably in some ways it's got to be his most straightforward film possibly because he took it over and possibly because he is bound by the strictures or the conventions of that genre to a certain extent. It's got one of the least nihilistic, cynical. It's got a nice ending. I know he's being crucified, but it's got a Hollywood ending, right? Where his wife gets to show the baby and she rides off and you feel good. It's ennobling. I can't think of another film of his that has an ennobling ending. So I think I could see where he would call it his least favorite, because I think he probably had a little bit of a thumb on him during the making of that, a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't have as much control.
Yeah, and he does a good job. He does. He does yeoman's work in the service of a studio wanting to make a biblical film that's going to make money.
Well, and I like the way Stephen framed it, and I haven't seen the movie, and obviously I'm a bigger Kubrick fan, but ever since you talked about it in that way, Stephen, with the idea of, maybe it's his best work because in some ways it is more yeoman's work, or he's the, the least invested in the usual Kubrick ticks and themes you get and all that stuff. Not to reduce what you're saying to just that, but I'm trying to, I know there are other examples either in music or movies where I've felt the exact same way about something, or maybe certain writers even, like when they're just doing sort of grunt work and they're not trying as hard to make it the big statement or something, that's often when they do their best work. I probably don't buy that with someone like Kubrick, because I am a fan of his work and I'm privy to the big themes and all that stuff, or I could be persuaded by them. But I know exactly what you mean in a general sense. And I'm trying, I know after
I
we
think I can
talk,
come up with-
someone's going to come to me that I'm going to think,
Yeah.
yeah, like whenever they're not trying as hard, that's when they're actually doing their best work or their most pleasurable work. So I totally get that sentiment, 100%.
I think I can come up with 2 or 3 quick examples. Scorsese, The Color of Money, which was a film that he made for Disney Touchstone, and it's a sequel to a famous film. He was bound, and he wanted to, he'd come off some smaller films where he lost money, and I think he was starting to be thought of as unbankable. And he wanted to go and show that he could make a straightforward film and make money. It's got lots of Scorsese touches and everything, but there was no way he could go off the deep end and make a Cape Fear or something when he was making that. He had obligations to produce a film that was going to be commercially successful. Another one that I just thought of was, I just saw it. Damn, I just had it.
Okay,
this
we've
is
got
not
less
quite,
than a minute, so.
okay. Lynch, The Straight Story, it's not quite the same thing. De Palma, The Untouchables, that's very much the same
Well,
thing.
that's a good one.
Yeah, so there are examples of that for sure.